There we got one big floppy package, which could have all of this week's family DVDs in it. I got it. Full of stuff, and one of them's caught in there sideways. There we go. And let's just start. First up, we have One Piece 3D 2Y. This would be takes place during the time jump portion of it. So, you know, one of my subscribers was nice enough to give me that information. Region A, English dub. It says Blu-ray and DVD, which is not very common for One Piece. And so it sounds like this one I could probably watch. So this will go on the queue, but there's technically quite a few things already on my... Ooh, it's a TV special. I see. Here we have DVD version, Blu-ray version. They don't look different, but it's kind of nice to, you know, see the simple differences. There's a bigger version of that poster. Good. Next up we have Hataraki Man. Standard definition on Blu-ray. I was just thinking that two of those characters do not look like guys. Region A, Japanese with English subtitles. Hold on, did I take a look at the extras over here? Extra features includes trailers. Yeah, because I sometimes forget to do that. All 11 episodes in standard definition on one disc. Stuff. Okay, that one's not separating. Maybe the thumbnail's not long enough. So we're just going to go in there and tear this shit up. Tear a little piece of plastic off. Throw it on the floor. Hope I find it sometime in the future before a turtle swallows it or something. Not that I have turtles here, but yeah. Anyways, looks like the idea is woman in office place competing with men. Maybe not competing. Let's actually put that one on the bottom, this one next. Let's go with this, because that's an order of, I think, importance of the remaining stuff. Next up we have Citrys, the complete series. Let's take this sticker and peel it aside, see if there's an attractive fellow hiding under there. There we go. And the answer is nope, but there is a potentially attractive female hit there if you're into that sort of thing. Especially if you like plot. I see regions A and B. Looks like an English dub. Bittersweet something or the other. Includes episodes 1 through 12 and extras, which are just textless opening, closing songs. You know, nice, simple, straightforward. Oh, different on the inside. Now, unless no. Okay, yeah, she's got chest there. Because I was gonna say. Yeah, it looks like there's chest drawn on them, so they could both be girls, and this could be a Yuri anime. You know, it's never outside the realm of possibility that there's trap stuff in there, and sometimes those can be good. You know, surprisingly wholesome. When you, I mean, I always think of like Midori Days. There's no traps in there as far as I remember. But instead, that one's just like, holy shit, what the hell's up with this premise? But then you watch it and you're like, actually, this is kind of sweet. So you never really know. Especially since, you know, this looks like it's advertising itself as a very Yuri romance sort of show. I do like all the artwork. Don't know if that means... I don't know where this falls on my list of priorities. The name doesn't immediately ring a bell, but you know, I still check stuff out. You never know. Next up, we have Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. Oh, yes. Oh, of course. Yeah, the DVD is going to be physically bigger, but the Blu-ray weighs more because there's a booklet in there. Yeah, there we go. Set 3. Battle in Egypt Arc. Stardust Crusaders. Anyways, the important thing is, I think at this point I officially have enough JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that I can go from the stuff that's considered entertaining to stuff that's considered, oh yes, this is why you watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so we have a back here. I see a region A. Given that this is Viz, I expect a dub somewhere on here. Approximately 576 minutes. Geez, these special features going forever. So, main feature, 4 Blu-ray discs, episodes 25 through 48. I don't think, 1080p HD, 16:9 aspect ratio, English and Japanese stereo audio, English subtitles, special features, 6 art cards, 104-page booklet, clean opening and ending, English class interviews, interview with director Nankatsu Tsuda, art galleries, and trailers. Duration. So, that's the thing that actually gets put over here. You see, we look at that because we see one of the guys' stands. I think is that the old Brando's stand? Don't answer. I don't remember. Am I even remembering name correctly? That's a good question. Let's see. First of all, we've got this key animation collection, Battle in Egypt, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, with a lot of key animation. Pretty cool. This feels like it's worth opening, but I'm going to be lazy and I'm not going to open it. I am going to open this though. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders. Looks like the same as the other thing, but we get to take a look on the inside. See some JoJo characters posing fashionably. Okay, that's being too stupid. How well do I remember which characters are which? I don't know. I really ought to watch it, really catch up on it for sure, and then just, you know, be caught up on it. I don't know. I'm so far behind on everything. I am catching up on my Blu-ray DVD rips, though. We're going to put that aside so that I can take this out. You know, taking a look at the back. Fairly similar. Not as long of a list, but let's see. Special features. Clean opening and ending. Trailers. Woohoo. Yeah, this is the same as that other one. Did I not look at the back of the other one? Oh well. That's definitely a different disc 1. After this, that one I'm not sure. Could be. Interesting. Always good for more JoJo to come out because it is definitely an iconic series. And last but not least, we have Land of the Lustrous Blu-ray Complete Collection. And this one's a steelbook, so it's kind of nice in that regard. I think this is only released steelbook. Let's see. First of all, looking at the back, English. Come on, focus, damn camera. Guess it can't because of the reflectiveness of it. English, Japanese, Spanish, Region A, all 12 episodes on 2 discs, 300 minutes. So this is actually a series. I thought it was a movie for some reason. Let's see. Okay, there we go. That's coming off that way. Interesting. And then on the inside, we're going to turn these. So is it their hearts that are crystals, or is it their hair? Okay, because this makes it look more like the hair. Maybe it's both. Hair are crystals. And I don't know what's in the background. Ooh. That made it worth it. That's a very neat anime-ish drawing. Let's see what lies behind door number 1. Ooh, more people. That's pretty cool. Well, this is the one I'm definitely looking the most forward to watching. Maybe if you think that I should be prioritizing Jojo, well, I guess the only reason that one wouldn't be a higher priority is just because I need to start watching it, which means I need to dig out set 1. But here we go. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update. So, first up, I did finish Princess Principal. I wouldn't call the ending as strong as Cowboy Bebop, but it does kind of remind me a bit of Cowboy Bebop, where you're kind of watching the series from episode to episode, not because of an overarching story developing, but rather because it's kind of neat from episode to episode. And comparing it to Cowboy Bebop isn't quite right, because I think Cowboy Bebop is just legendary. And it's not one of my personal favorites, and it's kind of interesting because it kind of means Princess Principal falls under a similar bucket where it's really neat to look at. It's a really neat scenario. The characters are interesting. If you're kind of iffy on them on the first episode, they grow onto you really quick after that, where you're just like, oh, okay, now I get this isn't just a cute girls doing cute thing. They're actually playing around with it. It feels like an interesting scenario, I guess. And the series overall, you know, there were a couple of neat things that definitely happened series-wide, but I guess that's kind of where its strengths aren't as strong, where it's like, when I talk about Cowboy Bebop, it's very common for other people to talk about the other two sci-fi space westerns that happen at the same time. That's Trigun and Outlaw Star, and all three of them kind of have different vibes going on to them, but of those three, for me personally, Cowboy Bebop has always been the weakest. And I think this is kind of common for a lot of people. Even though Cowboy Bebop, I think, has a more overall genre notability, it doesn't really tell a story that's intended to build up. It tells a bunch of interesting short stories. And they're just really interesting and really explorative. But when you go to Trigun or Outlaw Star, there's this world building going on where, and I guess world building is the wrong word, it's more like story building going on, where, you know, you just feel like you're watching episode to episode because it is intentionally building up to stories going to do something notable. And Princess Principal, I guess, fails kind of in the same way that Cowboy Bebop does there, but you can take that with a grain of salt because, again, you know, of how much it stands out. I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself saying this, but I guess part of that is I don't know how much I want to talk about it too much, because I feel like I could accidentally spoil little things. Overall, it was actually a pretty nice series. Next up, Overlord Season 2. And what can I say? It's I thought it was good, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as the first season. And it kind of works out okay because of that. So, the first season of Overlord is kind of very centered on our main characters and their understanding and learning of the world, I guess. And it's kind of weird to say it that way because, to a certain degree, our main character is trying to discover it as maybe the only real person, but maybe not a real person and not feeling like a real person kind of person. Whereas all the NPCs that are now not NPCs are now also kind of learning that stuff, but the perspectives are different. So it's kind of interesting. I think that could be part of why some people may find Overlord interesting, is because there's a couple of layers going on there where you're getting exposed to that world through a lot of different bi-directional understandings of everything that's going on. And this could also be a little bit about why I think I've mentioned in the comments last week that the first episode of Overlord is a little probably weak if you're trying to evaluate the series itself. It sets up the premise, and if you're interested in the basic premise, that's fine, but it doesn't really give you a good feeling for what the show's going to be. Whereas the second episode is when some of the interesting dialogue starts coming up, and that's really when the main character, when we start seeing the interactions going both ways. Because it begins with, okay, our main character's interacting with the NPCs that are now no longer NPCs as far as we can tell. But it's the second episode where that starts going the other direction, and that's when the conversation starts becoming interesting. And then it's the third one when they introduce that third layer where it's like, okay, now this is the world interacting with them, and it's going in all directions, and I think that's part of why some people find it engaging. And it's also why you can't really judge Overlord and whether or not you're going to like it until you're 3 episodes in. If you give it 3 episodes and you still don't like it, you know, that's actually a really fair shake. I don't think anybody could say, oh, yeah, you gave it a good chance. If you stop at the first episode, people were like, if you weren't completely turned off by absolutely everything, you should give it at least another episode. Because the first episode sets up a lot of promise, but it also sets up a whole lot of pitfalls that the second episode does a good job of alleviating, letting you say, okay, now I'm not completely invested, but I'm going to see what the next episode is going to be. So, you know, that 3 arc kind of tells you, okay, and then the rest of it is a lot more of that, but it's still focused on the Nazarite people, I guess. Whereas season 2, while their focus is there and important and front and center, it feels like there's been a shift where season 2 is more about the world developing, and or about the world itself. And it's kind of important to note here that this naturally means that some of the more clever things from the first season aren't present here in the second season. So a lot of the really good ideas, a lot of the neat tricks, a lot of the, okay, here's super ridiculously high level people engaging with each other and it actually feels like that. You know, the season 1 had some of that in it, and you don't really feel that here as much because they're not as much of a focus. They're not relegated to the background, but the focus seems to be, again, the other way around, where it's about the world. I mean, like the first couple of episodes, that was an interesting airplane. Sounded kind of low. Anyways, I say the first couple, but maybe the first handful to the first half of the series is really about the lizard men, for example. They mentioned it at the end of this first season, and then it kind of goes into more detail there. And that stuff's not quite as interesting as the first season stuff, but at the same time, the reason I think it works is because it's not completely unengaging. It feels like there's a kind of a rote, this is what we need to be revealing sort of structure to it, but there's a little refreshingness padded onto it, so it kind of begins a little rough, especially with the first episode, which kind of jumps around to a couple of things because the focus isn't on Nazarene anymore, and it's kind of, I think it's not quite sure where it wants to focus for the second season, but overall you can kind of feel, okay, this is good setup. So it's not quite like My Hero Academia. I mean, I've only seen the first 2 seasons, so anything I might say about movies or third season don't apply. But with My Hero Academia, you kind of feel like whatever's going on right now is always super relevant. And you just know it. You watch My Hero Academia, and that's what you enjoy about it. And one of the things it avoids that a lot of shonen shows fall prey to is getting too distracted by all the side characters. In My Hero Academia, more often than not, the interactions with side characters are intentionally being bounced off of the main character. He always remains relevant throughout the series. What he's doing is, you can feel it, the series is about him. It doesn't forget about that. It also does all these other things which are just
oh, well, this is really neat and this is really interesting. I like to see this character develop, but I kind of feel like if that character develops, that development is actually relevant to the main character as well. Even if he doesn't like talk about it like it is, you can kind of feel like something is growing and building around him, even if he's not the focus. And that's like in complete contrast to Naruto, which introduces a lot of really interesting characters, but a lot of the time you feel like, okay, we're developing this character, but it doesn't feel like that development is helping the main character. I think a lot of early Naruto doesn't suffer from this as much, and when it gets really later, it again comes around and focuses again, but it feels like, you know, you can, it's a series called Naruto, but sometimes you feel like it's about everybody but Naruto, and I've gone on a real tangent, haven't I? Anyways, so overall, I thought some really neat stuff happened in here. I wouldn't say exactly that I was glued, but I was able to stay glued watching it a lot more than a lot of the other stuff. Whereas Princess Principal, you know, you watch an episode and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to start another story next, so maybe I'll pause and go get something to eat or something like that. And Overlord 2 kind of had slightly the opposite effect. But again, it's not as good as the first season, and I think that's expected. It feels like it's doing some much needed setup. Often, I think, when I'm trying to remember how the 4-act structure kind of goes, and I can't help but wonder if there's something like that in there, where I don't think this is exactly like the second arc of the 4-act, because I think that's supposed to end with the characters at their lowest or something like that, or maybe that's the end of the 3rd arc or something like that. But I think there's one of those arcs in there where they've introduced you to the main idea, and they're building on it, and the building on it part usually can be the weakest of all the 4 parts. Sometimes it can be really strong, but it's usually the part where it's like, we're making sure the audience has requisite information. Unless I'm thinking of it differently. I mean, I'm talking out my ass for most of this stuff, just kind of thinking out loud. But, you know, it feels like this is set up. And from what I've heard of, from what little I've heard from the 3rd season, that one is also good setup, but I'm guessing what it sets up is set up because of what this season also managed to set up in the first place. So, you know, overall it's pretty good. It's not a lot of anime to have watched. I say just the 2 things, but really that's 1.5 series, which is okay, I guess. It's not as almost nothing that I sometimes do. And of course there were other things watched. So for example, I watched Batman Mask of the Phantasm with my Thursday friend. And I've seen it before, and there were little things I could remember about it, but I don't know if I really want to say those, just because people may or may not remember certain things, or I've seen it yet and wouldn't want to know. But for the most part, it was interesting. I think the most interesting thing about it is actually getting a good dose of Joker without Harley Quinn. Not that he's bad with Harley Quinn. The Joker-Quinn dynamic is great, and when they're not playing the abusive relationship angle, and she's not even a henchman, but his #1... I can't think of what word I was trying to think of there. Anyways, she's his #1, and you kind of feel like, okay, Joker jokes are happening, and it feels pretty jokery. But the most jokery Joker stuff are when he's on his own. And Mask of the Phantasm keeps the character roster a lot simpler, and Joker is an important character in there, and you get a lot of really good Joker out of it. I'm not sure if you get good Bruce Wayne or not. It's hard to say, because that aspect is more kind of an exploration of his romance, or kind of back and forth-ish on that. I'm not sure how else to put it, but, you know, overall, it was neat. I mean, as a really long episode, it's actually really great. I'm not sure how it compares to a lot of the others. Clayface is definitely a really strong episode. Oh my god, they must have broken their budget making that one. This week, I guess? I was going to say next week, but it was next week, last week, which means it's this week. This week, that friend I watched it with, our plan right now is to watch Deep Freeze, which is the the Victor Freeze, Mr. Freeze movie. And I'm looking forward to that one, because if there's good, strong Mr. Freeze content in there, then that would be good. Because the series, it felt like it didn't give us enough of that. I guess it's mostly... It's interesting because you kind of forget just how little some characters have a presence in the old Batman the Animated Series. You feel like they were there a lot more, but Clayface was in only 2 episodes. And the second one is kind of not exactly forgettable, but kind of, it's okay. Whereas the first one is spectacular, and you can't help but think, oh my god, Clayface is a major Batman villain, but he's only there for 2 of the episodes. So it kind of doesn't feel like it, but now he definitely is, because I guess they can have more villains like that. Anyways, it should be interesting to move forward with all that stuff, because part of our plans there, I think, is to move forward on the DC Animated Universe, which means once we finish that, unless we got some other anime we really want to watch, we're probably going to move forward to Superman the Animated Series. And then sometime after that, Justice League, I guess. The Justice League Animated Series, not the movie. Anyways, I've seen stuff there. I don't know. I'm going all over the place with the things I'm thinking of and talking about. So if I need to also talk about anything, it's Steven Universe. And it's interesting. I guess these next couple of episodes, or these previous couple of episodes, are probably the true Season 5 season finale. There's been a lot of, there's been groups of episodes that have come out, and super important stuff has happened in the 5th season where it's like, oh, is this the season finale? Because that's pretty big. But then, I guess the next group of episodes gets added on to Season 5, and the reason I think this last group is because it talks about, it had a little blurb at the end talk about the movie that's happening in fall, which kind of suggests that that is supposed to be a sequel to the final episode of the group of episodes we got here, which would make it a season finale. So what did I think about it? I thought it was neat. There was an issue, I think, with the pacing, where I can't help but think that they had a lot of things they wanted to do, and they wanted to do it slower, but maybe time constraints meant that they had to move a couple of things forward faster. And so there's a couple of things that happen fast that you've kind of wanted to see if you're a member of the fan community. Speculations that turned out to be true, others that turned out to be whatever. Just stuff that happened so that we got a pretty decent season finale. And the only issue I would have is it didn't feel like there was enough of a breather at the very end. And I think that's because it was trying to fit things into the episode size structures that it had. Again, there's an element of this that feels like they had a lot of these ideas and they probably would have tried to execute them slower, but I think maybe they started running into time constraints. Especially if the movie is actually supposed to be chronologically after the stuff that just happened. And if that's the case, then it pretty much means that maybe they're like, we need to have this out like half a year before that, so people have a chance to watch this stuff. So, I don't know what that means for people who haven't been keeping up on Steven Universe episodes. If you have not watched any of the 5th season and you enjoyed anything about the previous handful of seasons, it might be worthwhile to watch it just because, narratively speaking, it does some pretty great things. I just can't really go into detail exactly what I mean by that, just because it works out better if you don't know. It honestly does. This is one of those ones where even my friends are like, oh yes, I normally like to watch something that has a really good twist to it. I probably wouldn't give up some of the twists because the ones Steven Universe has are kind of magical. Like, there's some of them that you're expecting and some of them that you're not expecting, but then there's certain executions where you're like, oh wow, this is special. I don't know. That's really weird, I guess. But I guess thinking of this stuff, off the top of my head as I go here is maybe something that, is what y'all enjoy about this, I guess. Because I guess you're getting kind of earnest thoughts pouring out. Anyways, I don't know if I really played any video games. I did a lot of hanging out in VR chat. Some good relaxation. But I'm not sure what that means. I fired up Minecraft for the first time over the weekend, so maybe I did a tiny bit, but all I did in Minecraft was I ran around my little server, kind of checking up on the state of things and trying to remember what everything even was. What was I in the middle of? Are the machines that I built, I don't know, a year or two ago still running after all these version updates? The answer seems to be mostly yes, but that's right, I didn't even check that out. I know why. There's lots of little things to check out. I have a lot more items than I remembered. I'm not sure why everything was so slow. Anyways, all of that aside, you know, it's been an interesting week, and hopefully y'all will have a nice week.